Alright, today's the 25th of August. I'm still recovering from a period of sickness, so admittedly, I played poker from bed yesterday, and I've been reflecting on that, and I think that is just really, maybe not minus EV, but I'm certainly knocking off some win rate points by doing that. I feel like, well, the hands that I reviewed yesterday, I fell into the trap of being passive and paranoid and more susceptible to assumptive laden thinking, which is dangerous because I illustrated quite clearly how mistakes can compound when you're operating from that point of view. So I know for sure there's a similar hand in here where I'm not sure what I want to attribute it to. Maybe fatigue or just the simple fact that I'm lying in bed and my my mentality is paralleling my physical appearance. So I'm lying and being passive. Anyway, I'm getting better. Um, and it looks like I'll probably be at NL50 for the end of the month, for the rest of the month, because the session yesterday went pretty terribly. Well, the sessions plural. Something I've been working on in terms of mental game is trying to distance myself from results, so not being as results oriented. And I find that's kind of an impossibility when I'm shooting higher stakes so aggressively. I kind of need to be cautious about losses in terms of how devastating they can be to the bankroll. So what I have done in the past is I would just go for I would pick my limit where my risk of ruin isn't tremendous, and then I would play that limit for a month straight without checking results. And I thought that practice would make me less results oriented as uh, as I became more desensitized to the swings, or rather just completely deliberately oblivious to them. But that doesn't. Maybe I didn't do that exercise long enough, but it certainly doesn't seem to have done the trick. So I'm kind of grappling with the best approach in terms of shooting higher stakes and not being so obsessive about the bankroll. So I believe well, I didn't check results entirely, but I dropped about $600 or $700 yesterday, which I could measure by the bankroll, which I am looking at. And I found that very tilting. And it felt like a massive regression in terms of mental game, to the point where I almost wanted to abandon my previous disciplined approaches to not being so obsessive about checking my graphs and hold manager. Also guilty of doing this in the past where I would literally be whatever 4 or 6 tabling on one table. Oh, sorry, one monitor, and then on the other monitor, I would have my graph, and I would refresh the graph literally every. I want to say even every 2 minutes or so, especially after every big hand. So what is that telling me? It's telling me that I'm so grossly overly identified with something external, and the nature of anything external is that it's going to oscillate. So, well, that's really just the nature of life. Is I like to think of life itself kind of like a sine curve. It just seems like everything is cyclical in nature. So what goes up must come down, and that's certainly the case in something as volatile as poker. So if I'm placing my identity, and by extension of that, my well-being, and something external that is oscillating or fluctuating so violently, like a poker graph, it's just totally destructive to um, my well-being, or what do I want to call it? I guess my health overall. I can't think of the right expression. Anyway, so I think I'm gonna play 50s at the end of the month and not look at results at all until the first, and then I'll reevaluate and try to think of the best way to do it. I'm also a big proponent of doing NoFap, along with loads of stuff actually. If oops, that's a shame. Let me see if I can just log in quickly. Oh, I have a pretty intensive schedule that I'm following now, which is something I started in the beginning of August, and then I was sick for like 2 weeks, and I still am. Or maybe it's still in the 2 week window. And I just thought, you know what, I'll just restart it. So, yeah, so this is my, I'm experimenting this now, which is a no-fap schedule, which means semen retention for, I'm doing 7 days at the moment. I'm experimenting with it because I've gone, well, my longest streak has been over 100 days, and I've done 1 month streaks a few times, and I notice there's substantial change in the beginning in terms of benefits from abstaining. You can Google this if you're interested, but energy, clarity of thoughts, confidence, etc. And the reason I'd like to do a 7 day schedule is because what usually happens on the 7th or 8th day is the testosterone spike is at its highest. And regardless, after the spike, your testosterone plummets. And I'm also trying to align this with going out on the weekend to to do a pickup. So my goal for September, or by September, I'm supposed to do this month, but I haven't gone out, is approach 10 girls just as a starting point for a pickup. Which I think I can just do in one night if I can get myself out there by next weekend. Anyway, back to the NoFap schedule. Regardless, on the 8th day, you're going to lose testosterone. So I feel like it's way more beneficial to just reset the schedule instead of letting your testosterone it just kind of simmers after that point. It's still, I imagine, higher than normal, especially comparative to someone who faps every day, like I used to. But the only benefits I really found past maybe the 2 or 3 week mark is, actually, I want to say longer than that, maybe the 1 or 2 month mark, is the mental fortitude it takes to engage in a practice like that. So I'm experimenting with the 7 day. Let's see what else. Poker volume, hand reviews. I consider this my hand review. I should be pulling a Pio now too because I want to look at the spot. I started working with a guy for Pot Limit Omaha. He's pretty much cutting edge in the field by my estimation, so I can't really say no to the opportunity. And that's going to what's the word I'm looking for? It's like funnel. That's going to a conduit. I think that's the word I'm looking for. That would be a conduit for PLO staking in the future for a heads up exercise, meditation, everything. Everything is where you're barefoot on the surface, um, well, grass or soil. It's massively anti-inflammatory. Do an audiobook. This is the no holder manager checking, which I spoke of just now. Cold bath from Wim Hof breathing. They do spiritual studies with a guy called Ben Kinyo. He's got his own academy. RSD, pickup community. So I usually watch a program or do a course in the academy every day. This is Transformation Mastery, which I do every day. It's a program from RSD. And the aim of that is to realign one's subconscious with their consciousness. One's subconscious with their consciousness. The idea or the objective being to uh, or create equilibrium between the two, and so they're not working uh, contradictorily against one another. So, for instance, in poker, that might be I have aspirations to move up the limits, but if I harbor a negative belief system where I'm unworthy of success, then I'm just going to end up treading water. And I think I've been I think I've harbored a lot of negative belief sets, which was most likely, well, actually, I can say this with some certainty now. That's the reason that as soon as I hit my high point of success, it created such an intense identity crisis that it's almost like I had to lose everything um, to reconcile that fact. So now I'm back at quote unquote, I'm not going to say rock bottom, but it's certainly like just maybe one or two levels above it. I was trying to think of a ladder, like rungs. Okay, one or two rungs above it. But that's, I would say my negative thought patterns are largely responsible for that. Intermittent fasting, 1 gallon of water every day. I've got pretty bad skin. I've developed pretty bad skin issues over the past couple of years, so I'm doing an elimination diet right now where I literally just eat 3 things every day. I'm doing that for a month. And then I've gone vegan, I've cut out oils, all that stuff. I've done that for about a year. The elimination diet is something new. So I do think it's something called dry brushing, and everyone knows what squats are every day. I still have YouTube, except for music, which I've kind of strayed away from in the past, but I'm very particular with my music. If I'm listening to something like dubstep, then I can't play it for a while ago. But if I'm listening to something lighter like jazzy house music, I think it might actually enhance my play. Reading before bed, foam roller, a sleeping mat, no phone 30 minutes before bed, stretching, vitamins, minerals, audio mantras, wake up gratitude, and mantras list. I do that internally in my head. I do a makeshift sauna every day. No social media or apps outside of work related until the evening. Then I do coffee enema, maybe TMI. That's to help skin issues. Then I do a water fast once a week, which I think may have been the catalyst for this period of sickness, to be honest. And I actually view it in a positive light because I think I'm in a heavy detoxing period. Anyway, so this guy is a massive fish. He's playing 69-35. I don't really care what this guy's squeeze looks like because I think putting in sevens pretty against this guy. Well, I mean, seeing the flop is going to be pretty close to me. So here I put in a small block bet, which I think is alright. And at this point, I'm just trying to check and read showdown. On the river, he jams, and I rationalize making the call here. Let me pull up flop score quickly to illustrate why. Wish I could not have the HUD override. I hope it's something picked up in my mic. Fans go crazy. See, general settings. I don't know how to do that. I'm trying to make it. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm sure there's a way so it doesn't pull them to the front. I'll just put it on the screen for now. So we have got 10 of diamonds, 9 of clubs, 10 of clubs, 3 of diamonds, 5 of diamonds. Okay, now let's give him all the hands of this. So I'm gonna give him like 69.35. So I might even have wider. Like, okay, let's give him. Oops. Guess we could have 90. That beats us too. He might just retardedly jam it. Okay, let's see. So that's a little 10x. Let's see if I can figure out how to do the. How do I do that? Oh, I remember, I think. So, oh, I'm not interested. Oh yeah, hold on. All right. So I want the range that beats me. Um, this guy called threes in the flop. I'm just gonna guess yes. Same with fives. Some reason 48 combos that beat us so far, and then that's excluding. Oops. It's impossible for me to know what his exact range looks like. So I'm just giving him a smattering of these retarded hands. Maybe 35. Let's make it 25. And then of course we want the 9x that just backdoored the flush out. So something like that maybe. Way too old these. Okay. How do we do this? Pause it. Okay, I'm just gonna give my range looks like this. The ones that are tagged in the top right corner are the diamonds. So these are all the straight draws or 9x plus backdoor flush draws or overcards with solid equity. And then of course threes, fives, tens, Gave him jacks and queens. I don't know if he just calls them pre-flop, but um, gave him 50% of those. I guess I'm just being generous. Let's see here. So he's got 78 combos that are beating us in the river as an estimate. We're getting rough just about 2 to 1. So we need, very quick math, 78 divided by 2. We need 39 combos minimum in order to make the call profitably. So let's see if we can find that. Or, excuse me, he needs to have 39 bluffs minimum in order for us to make the call. So I think what I'll do is I'll screen cap this for reference, put that on my other monitor. Clear this. Now we need 39 combos. Okay. I think we automatically realize that by him having a straight draw. So I think it's a pretty clear call against it. 39, 35 here. Okay. Sadly, he flopped another butters. So this hand, my question was, do I want to raise the turn or not? When he goes half pot. And I think looking at it now, I think it's a really clear raise. What? Sadly, I can't use Pio for blind on blind spots because it takes too much memory and my laptop kind of just sucks. But I don't really know what I was trying to accomplish by like the sizing seems really inconsistent with the made hand. So his range, I think it can comprise of just ace of club high quite a bit, and sets which have now grown apprehensive because we've called the flop. I guess it's about it, and then worse flushes. And I mean, I feel like ace X of clubs will just naturally prefer to polarize in the turn because it wants to play for stacks. And this sizing just seems inconsistent with any sort of flush that beats us. So I think what I should be doing is making it 27 here. Instead I just called, which is a big mistake because we're never going to deny equity here. He's pretty much just free rolling when he places a half outside bet. And then sure enough, it gets there, and then he bets half pot again, which is kind of weird because again, I think an ace of club would want to bet larger, but I didn't really consider that while I was playing. I just thought the club hit. I mean, this on the river seems more consistent with an ace of club that's trying to extract value. Perhaps fearful that I will now just fold the vast majority of my range. So I think we both played this hand terribly. But I feel like the river fold is pretty warranted given how protected we are by the ace of club ourselves. I just never expect any bluffs here. Ever. So I'm happy with that. Fold. I just wish I had paid more attention to the turn sizing, first of all, because it doesn't seem consistent with anything that beats us. And secondly, I don't know what I was trying to accomplish by just flatting here. What is the purpose of keeping his range wide? That's the question. Sure, he can bluff rivers, but he might not. Might just check give up, anticipating zero or pretty minimal fold equity against anything that is paired in. So it's kind of, I look at this line and I kind of see a few lines that he takes where he just takes an inconsistent sizing line on the turn and then decides to turn his hand into a bluff, which is super incongruent, and he bets larger on the river. We would want to keep his range wide to face that opportunity, but it's hard for me to quantify how often that's actually going to happen. So I think, given he's shown this, like, this is the most valuable data point I think on the turn, is when he bets the sizing on the turn, it seems more indicative that he's going to take a more passive line moving into the river, by my estimation, given he seems like he's not a recreational player, he's probably just a shitty reg. It seems more in a fish's tendency to take an inconsistent line and then double back on himself and try to rep something new by the river. Here, I think a regular will be committed to a passive line after he uses his sizing. So I really have no incentive to keep his range wide, and I should be putting a larger sizing in here. What is my plan? I mean, I'm never folding my hand. So I've been trying to express actions in terms of whether I'm going to be inclined to fold my hand against any line he takes. And here I'm never folding my hand, regardless of the action, so it seems pretty costly to not raise against the passive range and chip for stacks, given he's shown a propensity to be weaker here, and which means he's probably got more of a merged or drawing hand range, which we need to capitalize on. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Here's where I need to load up pile, because I'm not sure how light I defend here. So I can run this hopefully pretty quickly. Pile. How is it? It's essentially the same thing. Small blind. Whatever, he squeezed, but who cares? It's gonna give you my answer anyway. King of heart, eight of club, six of spade, ranges are whatever, fine. And then I'll start this, and then move into the next one. It's for niece in the background. This is one of the first hands I played during the day. And I was conflicted whether I want to turn his hands into a bluff or not. I don't I don't expect that much fold equity on the turn because it's so dry. I think anything that is remotely condensed is just calling. But we still have domination over we could draw. So I thought I'd prefer barrel with a diamond in my hand, and then maybe with this quality of hand I can check back and then even call some rivers due to the draw nature of the board, the draw nature of the board. So I think this would be a combination of check back to call pretty widely on quite a few rivers. So I was alright with this. But the diamond gets there any bets. I think that's okay. This is my worst hand yesterday where I just again I call this playing in bed syndrome where I just like I don't know. I felt so I squeezed I put in the C bet and then here on the turn I decided to check, which is just really bad, I think, because well it's not terrible because well no it's still pretty terrible. If I want to look at what kind of range is calling my squeeze here, the way I've rationalized it was twofold. One, it's a board that we're not particularly thrilled on as out of position, so I expect we're going to be checking quite a bit on the turn here. Secondly, well, I've got a contradictory thought process because I aim to check raise all in, which my range will not favor on this board at all, I don't think. So I kind of made some half-assed effort to see what this guy's uh, bet versus miss bet. It's 30. It's 1 out of 3 on the turn. Small sample size. It's high on the flop. He struck me as the kind of guy who would, and it's a leak at least at these limits anyways that players will just auto stab in position one check to. So I could be alright exploitatively check raising here the times that he does bet. But if I am to look at his range, it's exactly like the King 3 of club hand, where I'm not prepared to fold my hand at any point, but I like to take the more passive route for whatever reason, and then I lose tons of value. Like potentially I cost myself a stack here by not betting the turn. So let me repeat that for myself. Even though I'm not, no matter the action, I'm not folding my hand at any point, and I'm taking the more passive route when his range is going to consist of more merged or condensed type holdings. So I'm the paranoid guy, and I see 10 on the board and think, okay, he could have a set here. It's 3 combinations. We beat King Queen, we beat Queen Jack, we beat 10-9, we beat all his draws. We only really lose to 7 combos, and a hand like King Queen is 9 combos in itself. So yeah, I just think a check here is really poor decision making, and it was at the end of the day, and I had gone through a pretty bad session, so that's when I'm more prone to this type of thinking, just self-defeating thinking, which I allow to thrust me into drawing upon yesterday's themes, the more assumptive laden, paranoid type of thinking. So, and pair that with my contradictory thought process to my contradictory thought process of my range wants to check a lot on this board, but if he bets, I'm going to check raise all in. That doesn't really make much sense at all. It's also not a board where I imagine he's going to barrel off light on. I think he might just check back a hand, even the hand as strong as king queen, after I check call on the turn. So I can say that with some confidence. As played, I like the jam. I think it's really easy for players to just automatically put you on ace king in a spot like this, which is another reason I hate myself for for not betting. I just expect every pair that is above a 10 to always call, which might be a lot of his range given the squeeze dynamic. Screw it. Let me put this in Flopzilla so I can really drill this one home. Those are definitely my leaks. It's the passive paranoid guy. And some of them, frankly, kind of embarrassing. Like this one was pretty embarrassing. Okay. Thought he's got that. Queens. Not sure how often I'll have these. Oops, that's why. So important I get this. Oops, I don't want to do that. I wanted to do that. Let's give him full weight this. Oops. Else. I'm not sure how often I have. So that's pretty bad though. I don't think I'll have any of these things. Okay, so something like that. Okay, let's check our equity against that. It's probably ridiculously good. Okay, so we've got 70.7% equity against this range. It just seems blasphemy not to have a bet here. And then when we do check, we give him free equity, and can we find any hands that are going to stab here other than the nuts and maybe some draw? I really can't. If maybe a hand like ace jack suited, I should maybe give him some ace jack offsuit too, possibly. But whatever. I guess he could also have ace king. Yeah, yeah, it's just terrible to check here. Free equity and low stab percent. Okay, well that's my most embarrassing hand this week. This is still churning away, so I'll pause the video. Okay. That's all right. Yeah, so I need to be against a 1/3 bet. I need to be calling 100% of my pairs here, which is something I've not been doing. I was trying to think of a name for this video, or as I think what I'll do is at the end of each video, I'll summarize it and then I'll put it in the description on YouTube, and I'm mainly just doing these for myself so I can reference them. Passive lines versus condensed ranges. So let me pull up both hands. Yesterday. Hand one. The data point is on the turn when he makes an inconsistency with whatever his, like it makes an inconsistency with the strongest regions of his range. And we elected to play passively against it. So 2 questions to ask myself. Maybe there's 2, let me think. At any point in the hand, are we prepared to fold ours? If he has ace-x of clubs, it's just a cooler, and there's really no benefit in keeping his range wide, unless he's the type of guy to become a maniac on the river, but I can't really confirm that for myself, nor is the data point in favor of that logic. I think that might have been 2 questions. I don't know. So the gist is if we are always bluff catching for stacks, and villain has now indicated that he is merged or condensed, we should be the one polarizing. That should intuitively make sense. And it's just such a violation of theory to slow play it here. Unless, like I said, he goes crazy on the river. The same thing happens here, where we're never folding our hand at any point. If he has here, I guess here's the bridging yesterday's video of today's. The paranoia is I get so fixated on him potentially having flopped it, which I guess is just a decade of playing poker and that happening occasionally. I become fearful, or that fear has become embedded in my psyche, and that's not that's detrimental for playing appropriately. It's just a terrible joke. Same theme here, where we should be the one betting for stacks because he's got the more merged range, as I indicated here. We have, excuse me, 78.7% equity. It's terrible. Okay, I'll stop criticizing myself so hard. Anyway, that's it for today. Yeah, okay.